Inflation surged last month, hitting hard due to Biden's policies. It's akin to a hefty tax, draining 30 to 50% of every dollar. This inflation tax has already increased by 50%, with Biden planning further hikes. It's crippling, particularly for small businesses and minority communities. Biden's approval ratings among these groups reflect dissatisfaction. Regardless of age or race, the nation can't endure another term under Biden. The promise to end this economic nightmare and restore greatness.
It was just announced last month, inflation surged once again and surged very badly. Joe Biden's inflation tax continues to take away 30 to 50% of every dollar you have. It's a 50% tax, that's what it is. Joe Biden, without any tax hikes, which he's going to give the biggest ever, has already tax hiked you 50%. It's like a sales tax, but much bigger, more painful, and more destructive, because all of the money goes to pay for Joe Biden's wasteful inflation spending like the Green New Scam. And that's what it is. It's a scam. Not one thing is cheaper under Crooked Joe's: food, gasoline, cars, trucks, rent, and mortgages. They're all through the roof. The whole country's going to hell because of this guy. He's got a 50% tax, and nobody ever talks about it, and nobody wants to hear about it, but that's what it is. It's called an inflation tax. Biden's price hikes are killing the American dream. Perhaps most tragically of all, the 50% Biden inflation tax hits working Americans and young Americans the hardest. It also hits African Americans and Hispanic Americans like as hard as they've ever been hit. It's a massive wealth confiscation from the people who need it most, and from people also that produce our jobs.
Let's move on to other news. Biden's stance on Israel is shameful. Those who supported him should be ashamed. His decisions are political, not right. We've filed a motion against an unconstitutional gag order. The case against me is baseless and unprecedented. Judge Murch is inconsistent. Prosecutors are making things up. This is election interference. My attorneys are doing well, but the case shouldn't exist. Thanks for being here.
Well, thank you very much. As you know, I'm under a gag order, so I can't really answer those very simple questions that you're asking. I'm under a gag order. Nobody's actually seen anything like it. But we talk about subjects we're allowed to talk about. Would love to not be in the gag order. I'm the Republican nominee for president. I'm leading in every poll, and I have a gag order. So I think it's totally unconstitutional, and we'll test that. This will be tested, because this should never happen to another candidate or another person, what's happening here. And today we had a very good day in court. You see what's happening. And you'll have to report it because I can't talk about it too much. But I think it was a very, very good day. The voters are getting a John McLaughlin, probably number one poll number with Fabrizio. John McLaughlin is probably the number one pollster. And voters are getting it. And they don't like the idea that the courts are deciding the presidential election. Well, so far my numbers were leading by a lot, as you know, against crooked Joe Biden. Charlie Hurt, a great person, great reporter. The problem for Democrats is that the extensive polling now shows that the voters see through their scam and don't like what's going on. Watching 100,000 enthusiastic people gather along the boardwalk in New Jersey Beach this Saturday, as you probably saw, to support former President Trump on Saturday evening, gives you some idea how terrified Democrats are of Trump. Well, I'm not saying it, that he's saying it. I don't think they're terrified of anything. They're fascists. Whatever happens, they cannot face him in the fair and honest election. There's no way anybody else is going to beat Trump. And they're using election interference to try and do it. And he then goes, because they lose and they know it. If it's a fair election, basically he's saying they lose and they know it. Jeff Zeleny of CNN, as I talk to the voters across the country in these battleground states, many of them aren't paying attention. The reason the president is having trouble, President Biden is having problems, is because young voters, voters of color, and inflation. Young voters, voters of color, and inflation. That is a problem for Biden. Byron York, great person, great reporter, journalist. For months, Democrats had hoped that the specter of Trump on trial would cut into the former president's support. Now we're in the 5th week. Can you believe I've been in here for 5 weeks instead of campaigning? It's a shame, which of course is their dream. It might not be working out the way they anticipated, but that's what they wanted to do, keep me in here as long as possible. Long as possible. Now we're in the 5th week of the trial with wall-to-wall media coverage, and it appears to have not affected Trump's support at all. The Real Clear Politics analyst, Sean Trende, wrote recently, the political science literature is pretty consistent that this is the time when the electorate's views are about the election, and it starts to harden, and basically they're saying we're doing really well. You're seeing all the polls. Alan Dershowitz, a great gentleman. This is election interference at the most obvious, and every American, no matter whether you're on the Trump team or against him, whatever political affiliation it is, and he goes on to say he's a Democrat. He can't be right about everything because he's making a big mistake. If you're Jewish and you're a Democrat, and that includes Alan Dershowitz, you ought to have your head examined. You see what's going on with Israel. But he goes, I'm a Democrat. You should be equally concerned about how the legal system is being weaponized and abused for partisan purposes. Remember this, all over the world they're watching this trial and they're seeing what a disgrace this is, and a big disgrace to New York. You know, I love this state, I love this city, and they've got to get it back. They've got to get the legal system back, because businesses are leaving, people are fleeing, but businesses are leaving because they can't go through what I'm going through.